vote authorizing document. So when you present, however you present, by mail or in person, that's called a voting method. It's called a voting method. So there's, and voting method is pretty much comparable to what I refer to as a reporting group. Not necessarily the same, but pretty much. But pretty much, and there are some nuances, and I can explain that later.
Yeah.
But just, yeah.
So that information would be available after canvass?
It's available as of election night. So if you look at our website, when you tally the absentees, remember you're going to use your precinct, your administrative precinct, your absentee by mail precinct. Those results come in. That is called a precinct because when it's read, the media is read into Unity, that's your vote tabulation software. It's read into the precinct of absentee one stop, and it goes into the absentee by mail reporting group. So think of all of you have 19 precincts? 17 precincts. You have 17 election day precincts. Think about a grid. Those are your rows. And then at the bottom of your row, you have 17 precincts, and then you have an administrative precinct for absentee by mail, an administrative precinct for provisionals, and an absentee precinct for every one stop site. You only have one, but if you had four, you would have four of those. That's your row. And those are your precincts, and there's a media stick for every single precinct. Then, when you read those results in, you have to associate a row to a column. And those are your reporting groups.
Gotcha.
So election day, absentee one stop, absentee by mail, provisional, right? That's how they know. They're broken down because the results of how they come in, but they're all aggregated together.
Gotcha.
Can I ask a question, Madam Chair? Can I ask her a question?
It's up to you. That's if you want to handle it. That's
It's pertinent to what she just said.
Yes, ma'am. Did I understand you correctly to say that absentee one-stop voting was not to be counted or viewed until election day after 5?
Yes, sir. All absentee ballots by law have to be counted by the board on election day, and then any supplemental absentees, like military overseas that come in, civilian absentees that come in on that Friday after election day, if they're postmarked by election day, those will be accepted. And so you have to count those as part of a supplemental in that same process. You'll have a board meeting for that. So you're having 5 board meetings up to election day, and there has to be at least one more after election day prior to canvass. So you're going to be meeting a lot in that meeting. No vacation. And we're going to get you a calendar. We're going to get you a calendar so you know when you have to be here.
Is there a reason why they would be counted before then?
So what I want to make sure of, Madam Chair, is that as I give this presentation, I'm happy to answer maybe questions at the end, but I want to make sure that we don't get into an exchange of like something. I just want to be careful, right? That I don't want to get into an exchange about any past practices.
That's not what I'm after here.
Yes, okay.
The question is, are they counted any time prior to that time after 5 o'clock on election day?
After 5 o'clock on election day?
Before that.
Would there ever be a case when they were counted before that?
No. They can be, they can go up to 2 o'clock. And in some cases, it's like a military county, it will even allow you to start counting military overseas at 9 a.m.
Because there's an overwhelming number of them in Cumberland County, for example?
Exactly. And the reason for those, remember, they're electronic, so a lot, they come in overwhelmingly by email. You can't feed an email ballot into the tabulator. So part of what you're going to have to do at some of your absentee board meetings is to do a ballot duplication process. You will have to meet as a team, or you can assign it to staff or precinct officials who are bipartisan, and you have to look at the ballot that cannot be tabulated, and they will duplicate the voter's intent from the electronic ballot, or sometimes even a regular ballot, it gets, things always don't always go through the tabulator, and you just duplicate it. And there's a process that we give them about how to do that, how it's transparent. They always maintain the original ballot that you can always compare to the duplicated ballot. So yes, in larger military counties or counties with like a huge number of, thank you so much, a huge number of overseas citizens, you see that a lot in College, in Orange County, for example. You guys
we don't.
you don't have a lot, but at the time that you have it, we want you to duplicate, even if you have one or two, duplicate the ballot. And the reason for that, so you're not doing a hand count tally. We don't want you doing that.
Well, I attended a few board of election meetings and I saw that process.
Yeah.
But most of the time, when I was here, it was because when they were opening the envelopes, they just slit the ballot right open as well, and it spoiled the ballot. It couldn't be.
Yeah. Have to be careful.
And we get these applications in, and they're processed, well, depending on the time of day. If they come in at 5 o'clock, we can't process them then, but they're usually processed the same day, and the ballot goes out the same day. And we've had ballot applications come in today, and then next week, we get the ballot back undeliverable. And we send it to the address that's on the application. And we don't have a phone number. They don't give us a phone number. So we can't do anything.
Because you only have an address that's obviously incorrect.
Right, and it was sent in, it was brought in today, it was sent out today, but the address is not good.
And it comes back undeliverable.
It comes back undeliverable. And we have no way to contact the voter.
And when that happens, the status, I think there's a return status of undeliverable, so that at least you know. So that's why, again, I mentioned the SEAMS tracking system, so that we can determine.
So that's tracked also.
That's tracked also. What is also tracked is that because this is it's called in the statute an absentee register, it's required that you track that. So back in I don't call it the old days, pre-SEAMS days, it was actually a log that you were putting in. And so that was a register. So our register now is electronic, which also means that because you're tracking every single application, because remember, this is what you're tracking. Because you're tracking the application, you also see the ones that are null or blank. And so those are the ones you don't know the status. So if you ever see indication, well, where are all of these missing ballots? Well, we don't know.
We don't know, and we
Do we have a good return rate though? I mean, I know it's been, but let's say I know that I was at a meeting on, I think it was election day, and one of the board members asked Ms. Shaw how many absentee ballot requests had been received. And she said she didn't remember the exact number, but it was between 1,700 and 1,800 absentee ballot requests that had been received. So I think I read in the newspaper that it was something like 1,372 that were actually sent out.
No, it was, we sent out close to 17, I think. That's where the number on the CIV number, that tells us exactly how many have sent out.
So for every request, one is mailed out.
Right,
Okay.
every request, one is mailed out.
If the request is valid. So
Gotcha.
you may
Right.
have some that when it's processed, if it's unsigned.
I got you. Well, I do remember that she said that was how many had been requested, and I do know that the board reported some to the state board that they knew were invalid. For example, they just received an absentee request from somebody that was dead. It was actually a relative of one of the board members. So there were some that were invalid, and I guess that would make up the difference. I got
Yeah,
you.
you always get more requests. This is true with voter registration applications too. If it cannot be processed, then a ballot does not go out. So that's important to note. If they cannot if there are reasons not to issue the ballot, they won't issue the ballot. They'll do what they can to correct any deficiencies. Even on the request, they'll send out what we call an incomplete notice to the voter or the near relative to try to correct the deficiency, but they don't always return that.
Okay.
And also you can have a request multiple requests for the same person. And so, and we see that a lot sometimes with military overseas, or even with civilians. So that's a request, but you only get one ballot. And if you need a replacement ballot, then the other applications are rendered spoiled in the system.
And we get, there's two spots on the application. There's a spot for your physical and your mailing. And sometimes it may be a simple thing as not putting a mailing address on it, but we don't have a phone number.
Well, like for example, people have post office boxes,
Right.
and if they don't put that, then when you mail it to the address they've given, it's undeliverable. I gotcha.
Okay.
Thank you, Counselor.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the fake news.
Is there anything else that we need to know right now before our formal training session on handling fixed? No.
We need to go back to number 1.
Okay. What was the question?
On number 1 about legal responsibilities and handling poll worker assignments, you and I briefly discussed that. Have you been able to locate the appointments that were made in August of 2017 when the chief judges and judges were appointed in August 2017 for that 2-year cycle?
I haven't had time.
We need those because as I understand the law, and Mr. Johnson's are going to review it for us. When those and you can tell me probably more. When those appointments were made in August of 2017, they are for a 2-year term. If for some reason a person who was appointed is no longer assigned or no longer completing that assignment, they've said they don't want to work anymore or whatever, a reappointment has to be a person of the same party.
I would have this, those.
Okay, so you don't know about that. Okay.
That sounds right, but something like that, I would prefer either to read it to make sure
Right.
it sounds right,
Yeah.
or.
And Ms. Shepherd, that, just reviewing that 163A, 815, that does sound correct, but before we even get the chance to dive into that, we obviously need to find those names.
Right, exactly.
And that's the first step before we can really move on to 2.
Right.
See who's there, who's willing to continue serving up to
Right.
August of this year.
And the problem is, when we got the list of those who had been assigned for the May 14th, it was obvious that changes had been made, but that party had not been taken. So when I called Caitlin Love, who is the deputy attorney, she just briefly gave me an overview of what we had to do, which was to make sure that those original people were serving. If not, what the reason was, that the reassignment matched. She also told me that of the 3 judges, 2 judges and chief judge, that there could be no more than 2 of the same party, that there could be no more than 1 of the 3 who lived outside the precinct. So we know that in our assignments for May 14th that they're not right. And so we're trying to get those right. So what we need is that list of appointments that were made in August 2017. And I also read that there is a legal requirement that once those appointments are made, there is a notice published in the newspaper of those assignments. And
Yeah.
I could not find that that had been done. If there was, there'd be a record through the newspaper. But we really need that so that we can get the assignments for May 14th within the guidelines of the law.
That last section there, G, does say, I mean, it's a directive, the statute does say shall. Shall be published the name, or shall publish the names in a paper's general circulation.
And also what we need for you to locate is, the process is, again, as I understand from the law, and I'm certainly not a lawyer, that in that August appointment session, the chairman of the Republican Party, which will be Mr. Schaefer in August of this year, and the chairman of the Democratic Party, Reverend Hayes, this year, will each nominate 2 people for chief judge of each precinct. And from that list, the chief judges and judges for each precinct will be appointed and voted on by the board. Am I correct in that? So it's not too early to start thinking about those things for next time, but we've got to get this one right as well. So what we need the nominations that were made in 2017 and the appointments that the board determined, so that we can make sure we get everything right. And I'm just going to say, as an example, I mentioned this to Mr. Schaefer earlier. we know that in one precinct at least, that the appointment that was made in August 2017 was a Republican, was appointed as chief judge. For whatever reason, they have been replaced, and on the list of assignments, it was the Democrat, and I know that's not allowed. We have to maintain that party appointment. So we want to make sure that those things are right, okay?
Anything else for that? Okay, so now we are down to, item number 3, the rights of the board when considering hiring employees. We would just like to know what needs to be considered and, how far we can go with that.
Like, for example, we have a vacancy now for a director. When we
Don't
get,
you go through the HR department for the county?
they do the advertising and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And that's apparently already been done, and it's been closed, and some applications have been received, but that was a few months ago. So we don't even know if those people have been employed, where if they're even still interested in the job.
Why are they not communicating the results that they got in from your applications?
I don't think I didn't even know that they.
I take it you want us to look into that, and that's a good request to see what role you guys play
Right.
into the hiring of director, which you're gonna be working with pretty much
And
on
if it
a
was
weekly,
in-
daily basis.
Right, and if that was done months ago, should we re-advertise and, you know, because I think that was done
Yeah.
last year in anticipation of Ms. Shaw's retirement. And, you know, things didn't transpire exactly as that was planned. So,
It was done, if I'm remembering correctly, it was done in February with anticipation that we were gonna get a board. We didn't know we were gonna be so late getting a
Because,
board.
Okay, I heard you.
It was done in February,
Mhm.
and I went to Greg and, Greg Martin and Shantia Keaton, she's the HR person. And they decided to run it then with the anticipation that we would get a board. But we were late getting a
all
board.
right, we'll check it out.
and then also
And-
the implications of having a board currently that's only one party.
Right.
And we don't know how long it will be before we have
Right.
a full board. You know, how does that affect it? I'm gonna be honest about that. If I was on the other side, I would not want, you know, if I was on the other side, I wouldn't want to, you know, to see the hiring in this condition.
That's true.
Yeah,
I mean, both
you know,
sides.
you're supposed to treat people the way you want to be treated.
That's correct. We'll look into that.
Okay.
Okay.
Closed session.
Any other questions on that? Okay, now we into, the correct procedure for conducting closed session.
Make sure we're doing it right because Mr. Allen Wooten has told us we were not.
Well, he's technically correct, but anyway,
Did y'all get a copy of the,
I gave you behind your stuff, closed session.
All right.
did y'all have a chance to review that, obviously?
Have not.
No, that's all right, just go through it right quick. There used to be about 30 things you can go into back when I started practicing law. And the last
Clean all that down, huh?
And the law has changed.
But basically, as I understand it, you tell me if I'm right, if one of us is gonna make a motion to go into closed session, we have to cite the general statute by number
Here it is, very simple.
and the subsection that applies.
Math basically.
That's
You
correct.
see where I've given you that 6, there's about 9 now.
Yeah.
See that C down there, motion to go in closed session, the county uses personnel in conference with the attorney 95% of the time, you know. There's certain things in there like you got marked off, you know, if you wanna give an honorary degree, you don't wanna talk about it in open session. Or if you wanna buy some property to put a school or building on, the county doesn't want the world to know about it.
Right.
Stuff like that. But the majority of the closed session laws is just like 143, 318, boom, boom, boom.
Okay.
And sometimes they just say closed session discussions with the attorney. I mean, you know.
And if you know prior to the making of the agenda, then include that subsection that you're wanting to ask for closed session on the agenda.
Yeah.
But if it's if it's obviously something that you've heard of and we need that chairman at the time says we need to go to closed session and it falls under one of these, then just make sure you cite it an open forum of what section you want to go under. I always keep one of these closed sessions or this copy of the statute with me at all the meetings for the county commissioners in case there's ever an issue.
And once we leave closed session, then what is our obligation to explain the
Well-
results of closed session? We know we can't vote or anything in closed session.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, there's usually, the secretary or whoever someone's gonna be taking
Clerk,
notes,
yeah.
clerk will be taking notes at that closed session. And at a later date and time upon, that issue being resolved in a little bit of passage of time, I forgot the amount of time,
You just make a motion to seal the minute.
to seal the minutes, but then those minutes will later come out and about once that issue's
And then
resolved later on.
If you buy your land or buy your property and, somebody, and then you make a,
Well, how much of that do we have to state when we come out of closed session?
you don't state anything.
When you come out of closed session, you just,
Yes, well, you went in closed session.
Okay, well, I'm just saying,
when you come back out, say, well, I have a motion to come out of closed session.
and that's it.
Second approved,
Okay.
then you can
And
go
motion
back
to
into,
adjourn.
but then usually,
Yeah, that's right.
it's usually a motion to adjourn.
Right, okay.
You're gonna be all right, Don, it'll take you.
Well, I don't want anybody telling me I'm doing something wrong.
And we don't want Mr. Wooten writing any more articles in this.
Right.
It's late, we should say that.
And, okay. All right. So that's that. All right, now we're down to item B, review of the budget. And I think Ms. McCoy had given us.
How do you go? We're not going to be traveling very much.
And this is based on us having 3 elections next year, one in September, one in November, and one in March.
What about municipal elections? When are they held?
Here, that's November.
All municipal elections are just in November, like that'll be in the county, like all the little towns will have
Right.
theirs in November. But you still provide all the personnel and everything?
We handle the
Okay,
election.
and that's
And-
included in this budget, or the
And
cities?
then
and
the
that?
state, we handle the election and the towns reimburse us.
Okay.
We have to bill the town afterwards.
Gotcha.
So this Board of Elections handles all the municipal
Right.
elections. And then the towns are then billed for that.
Mhm.
And, okay. And you provide staff for that too?
Right. And the towns have an option to either participate in absentee voting or not. And last time we had 2 towns that opted not to participate in absentee voting
For their
for their town.
There's not early voting for municipal elections, is there?
Mhm.
There is sometimes. They can opt to have it.
They can opt out if they have it or not.
I know Tar Heel never does because I think we have like 5 people to vote. Okay, so what we had mentioned before was that, and I don't, as I understand it, this is not the final budget request for next year, is it? It is. But when the commissioners are in their budget sessions, we can talk to them about other things, like if there's upgrades to the facility, because obviously the county owns this facility. If we want upgrades to the facility, we can make that